In this tutorial, player will run like this. Okay, we will play running animation and idle animation clip. Okay, depending upon if the player is moving or not. And if you haven't watched second part or first part of this series, you can go and check that out. I have a link in the description, and also you're gonna able to access of sprites of this I used to make this game, and this tutorial basically. Okay, you can go and check that out in the description. So without furthering delay, let's dive into this topic. So to make those animation, you need animation tab as well as animator tab. So how you can find them? You just have to go to window in the top. Okay, window. Then as you can see in the bottom side, it says animation. Okay, and the shortcut key for it Control 6. If you just Control 6, it will bring up your animation tab, as well as in the bottom we can see animator tab. Okay, so I'm gonna select this animation tab. I'm gonna drag it over here. Okay, so what we will do, we will create two animation, one for not running, uh, not three animation: idle, run and jump. Okay, so if the player just stand on the ground, so we will play the idle animation, and if the player moves, then we will play run animation. Else if the player just jump right away, okay, we will play the jumping animation. So let's do that. Let's create that idle animation first. Okay, firstly you need to select this player game object, and you have to hit this create button. Okay, and we have to save our animation. Okay, so let's create an animation folder first. To do so, you can go ahead on assets, as you can see. Okay, or what you can do, go over to assets in the project tab. Okay, assets, firstly go move over to project tab, then assets, right click, create. Let's create a folder. Okay, and name that folder to something like animation. So we will make our animation or the project a little bit more cleaner. It will be little more cleaner and noticeable. Okay, so that's why we're creating multiple folders. So let's call this folder new folder to animation, and let's go inside of this folder and let's create a player animation folder, so it will be organized. Okay, let's suppose we create animation idle animation of enemies, attack of enemies. So we will create another folder and we will call it something like enemy animation folder, something like that. So as well as, so let's get inside of this animation folder, double click that to open up, and right click on it, create folder, and let's call this folder player animation. Okay, so I'm gonna call it player space animation. Okay, so now select this animation tab or just drag it over here, and we have to click on this create button. Okay, firstly select the player game object on hierarchy and click on this create button, and we will go to first assets, and we know in assets we created that animation folder, so let's go to that. Okay, this animation folder, and we also created a subfolder which is player animation, so let's get inside of it. Okay, let's call this animation new animation to something like player idle. So let's call it player underscore, okay, underscore, I'm gonna call it something like idle, and click on save. Okay, or hit enter, and we need to drag all of the sprites of idle over here. Okay, I will have all of this sprite in the description, you can go ahead and check them out. Okay, so we will select the player idle, so let's go to sprites, then individual, then idle. Okay, and make sure all of the sprites, you select all of the sprite by holding down shift and move over to inspector. Over there, as you can see, pixel per unit I made 16, so the sprite we can able to see like this size. Okay, and select filter mode to point no filter, and after doing all of this thing, click on apply. So you gonna able to see your player game object something like blurry. To get rid of that, you need to select point of filter. Okay, and select all of this sprite. Okay, all of this sprite, firstly we need to hit this red button. It will record our animation. Okay, So make sure you click on this record button and then select all of the sprite by holding down shift and move it over to this play animation tab. Okay, and if I hit this play button now, as you can see the play animation just playing too much fast. So what we will do, we'll select like this. Okay, and let's move this animation sprite something like 30, I guess. Let's make spaces between some 5. Okay, something like I'm gonna make it 5. And if I hit this play button, as you can see the player ideal animation is playing. So I'm gonna make it a little bit, shrink it down, because animation is playing a little bit slow. Okay, so let's move it over to something like 10. I'm gonna move it to 10. So 10, it's not good, so let's move to 15. So as you can see 15 seems pretty great. Oh, okay, you can play around with that, it's up to you. So once you done completely, click on this record button one more time, so it will capture your animation. So now if I select this animator tab in the bottom, as you can see, okay, and if I select this player game object, right away this player ideal animation is playing. Okay, as you can see player underscore ideal animation. Okay, and it will be default one. Let's create other animation as well. Firstly, let's move to project tab, then assets. So this animation is just looping. Okay, if you don't want to loop animation, what you have to do, so let's open up our animation where we saved our player underscore animation clip. Okay, let's open that up by double clicking on it. As you can see we have the animation in the inspector. As you can see loop time, and you can uncheck if you don't want to loop. Okay, don't want to loop your animation, you can uncheck that. But for player ideal animations clip, we will leave it. Okay, we want to play ideal animation clip as soon as player just standing on our ground, we will leave it as a ideal animation clip. So let's create other animation as well, one for running and one for jumping. Okay, so select the player game object one more time and click on this over here on player ideal. Okay, click on this and click on player create new clip. Okay, create on that, and then we will go over to that animation folder one more time. Okay, and this let's open up that player animation folder we created, that subfolder. Okay, and let's rename this player and new animation to something like player underscore run animation clip. This will be our running one. Okay, so let's call this player underscore run. Okay, or running you can say. So and click on this save button. Okay, so once you done, hit this record button one more time and let's choose all of the running sprites and let's drag it over to animation tab. Okay, to do so let's go to run. So over here I have, so make sure you made all of the sprites 16 pixel per unit. So I already have made it. So I'm gonna select all of the sprite by holding down shift and let's move it over to animation tab. Okay, make sure you click this red button to capture your animation or record your animation. Okay, now if I hit this play button, the animation is just going too fast, so let's make spaces between this sprite. Okay, running sprite. So let's select like this and let's move it over to something like, I'm gonna move it to 30. And if I hit this play button now, so as you can see player is running, but it's little bit weird. So let's shrink it down spaces between these running sprites. Okay, something like, I'm gonna move it to 20, I guess. 20 it's not seems, let's move it to 15 as I did. So 15 seems okay. It seems weird. Okay, so what we will do, the as you can see sprites spaces is a little bit still. So let's move it over to like this manually. Okay, I'm gonna move this manually, so it will be pretty great. Okay, something like, just make spaces between this sprite with unit 5. Okay, if I now hit this play button, animation will be fine. As you can see animation seems pretty great now. Just manually do that or just make shrink it down or expand, it's up to you. Okay, and once you completely done one, when it's pretty fine, click on this red button one more time. Okay, now if I select this player game object and move to animator tab, as you can see, new animation has been added to our animator tab. Okay, and by default player idle animation is playing, and player underscore animation just we recently created. Okay, so you can set any of them default state, it's up to you. So to set that default state, now you just have to right click on that state and set as layer default state. Now if I hit this play button, the running animation will be played right after the game starts. Okay, because we set this player underscore run animation clip as a default state, but you can set any of them, but we don't we just wanna leave it to idle. Okay, so as you can notice that player just running, keeps running. Okay, and you can uncheck that loop time if you don't want to loop your animation, it's up to you. Okay, so I'm gonna leave it to player idle animation clip. Okay, when the game start, when we just hold down A or D key, in that moment we're gonna move. So in that moment we will play this player underscore running animation clip. I hope you get the idea. So right click on player underscore idle, I'm gonna set this to default, and if I hit this play button now, this idle animation will be played right after the game start. Okay, right after the game start, this idle animation will be played, but it's up to you. You can set any default state, any of them. Okay, so once it's done, it's taking time for reloading our animation. So we need to logically we need to move over to running or idle, depending upon what we're doing with our keyboard. I hope you get the idea how it's working. Okay, so it's taking a little bit amount of time, I'm sorry for it. Okay, once it's done, you're gonna able to see that idle animation clip will be played right after the game starts. Okay, this play button. Okay, hit this play button, we're gonna able to see idle animation will be played right after the game starts, because we set the idle animation default state, but you can set any of them running by just right clicking on it and set as layer default state. Okay, I hope you get the idea. And as you can see, idle animation is playing just right after the game starts, because if we move to animator tab, as you can see, idle animation is playing over again and again. Okay, and so what we have to do, we have to make the jump animation clip right now. Okay, but we will get into that later. For now, let's deal with running animation clip and idle. Okay, so if I move to animator tab, and if you can find animator tab, okay, so what you have to do, you need to go to in the window in the top. Okay, then you can find animation in the bottom, or control 6, so it will bring up your animation tab, as well as you can choose animator tab in the bottom. Okay, so as you can see, we created that player underscore run animation clip, and you can set any of them default state by right clicking on it and set as layer default state, but I'm gonna leave with this idle. Okay, idle will be default state. So we need to make transition between this. Okay, when the player is moving, so in that situation we need to play that running animation clip instead of idle. So what we have to do, we need to make transition between these two state. To make transition, right click on idle and make transition to player underscore run. Okay, and select this arrow, so it will go right away player underscore run animation clip. Okay, as you can see, so we have has exit time. So this uncheck this, basically what does it means, so it will play idle animation clip 0.5, basically means 50% it will play idle animation clip, then it will go to running animation clip. Okay, but we don't want, as soon as player is moving, we should play this idle run animation clip instead of idle. So we're gonna uncheck that, and as well as we will set transition duration to 0. We're gonna go immediately to running animation clip. Okay, and in the bottom you can see condition, okay, and it says list is empty. So what you have to do, you need to choose a condition, in which condition you want to go to that running animation clip, okay. So we have to choose a condition. So in the parameter, okay, go to animator tab. In the in the left side you can see parameter, okay. So click on that and hit this plus icon, and we can set a some certain parameter, and if those parameter getting true or becomes true, then by situation we will play the running or idle. So in this case we will choose this float, okay. So select this float and we will call it something like run, okay, run. And what we want to do, we want to set this run parameter to 1, okay, and we will create a some smaller number, lesser, which will be lesser than 1, okay. And if the run we will set to 1, it will play the player underscore run animation clip, okay. But we need to choose that condition. So go to one more time, okay, one more time, list is empty it says. So click on this plus icon, okay. And what we will do, we will set this run parameter greater than with some smaller number, something like zero point 0.1, okay, zero point 0.1. So if I set this run parameter to 1, okay, so we know run greater than 0 0.1. If we set this run parameter to 1, which we know it will be greater than 0 0.1. 1 is greater than 0 0.1, we know, okay. So the condition over here getting true, okay. So if so the condition getting true, so it will play this player underscore run animation clip right away, okay. So if I hit this play button now, and if I set this run parameter to 1, so 1 we know it will be greater than 0 0.1, okay. So just wait for to compile, and hit this play button in the top, and if we set this run parameter to 1, which will be greater than 0 0.1, okay. So if I set this to 1, so as you can see, a run animation gets played right after the idle animation, okay. So what we will do, we also need to go back to our idle animation clip, okay. We also need to go back to idle animation clip. So we need to make transition back to idle. To do so, right click on player underscore run and make transition to player idle, okay. So hit this plus icon, and we will untick this as exit time, because as soon as we standing, we should play idle animation clip, not the running one, okay, right after it just stop moving the player, okay. So I'm gonna untick this. Also we will set this transition duration to 0, and we need to choose a condition in the bottom side. It says list it empty. So in which condition we want to go, so we will set this run parameter to 0, and if it's 0, with we will set some smaller number, something like 0 0.1, and we know 0 0.1 will be lesser than 0 is lesser than 0 0.1. So the condition getting met, okay. So in this situation we will play the idle animation clip, okay. So hit this plus icon. So for now what we will do, we will choose a run will be lesser than some smaller number, something like 0 0.1, okay. And we know if we set this run parameter to 0, and 0 will be lesser than 0 0.1, because 0 0.1 is greater than 0, okay. So the condition over here getting true, okay. So in this situation this idle animation will be played, because we made transition back to idle, okay. So if I hit this play button now and play around with this run parameter, if I set this to 1, it will play the running animation clip, because we have chosen that condition. And if I set this parameter to 0, it will play the idle animation clip, okay. So if I set this to 1, so as you can see, because if I select this arrow, as you can see, we have chosen that condition, okay. 1 is greater than 0 0.1. And if I set back to 0, as you can, as soon as we setting back to 0, it's playing idle animation clip. So I hope you get the idea, but we need to control this parameter, okay. We will set this run parameter 0 1, depending upon if the player is really moving or not, and we will set this run parameter through our code, okay. So if I select the player game object, as you can see, an animator component has been added to your added to our player game object, while we made those animation clip running, jumping, okay, running and idling. so this animator get added by default, and this animator component is responsible for playing our animation clip. So basically we need a reference of this animator component, basically reference or link up, and then we can access this run parameter, and we can set it to 1 0 depending upon if the player is really moving or not. Okay, so what we will do, let's open up our script. We want to set this run to 0 1 depending upon if the player is moving or not. So let's open up our player script because we need a get reference of this animator component. Okay, this animator component, and we can set the value by accessing this animator component. So firstly let's grab the reference of it. So open up our script by double clicking on it. Okay, let's make a public animator field. Okay, public, so we can able to see this animator component over here in the inspector. Okay, that is a animator component, and let's call it something like animator. We have to name it. Close that up with semicolon, control S to save your code, and let's go to Unity. So in player script you're gonna able to see an empty field of animator. So what you need to drag this animator right there. So we will have the link up or reference, then we can set this run parameter right there. Okay, by going to this animator component. So just wait for to compile. When it's done, drag the reference out there and you are good to go. Okay, so just be patient a little bit and we are good to go. So just wait. Okay, so it's compiling and it's done. So as you can see, animator component which says none, which is empty. So what we will do, we will select this animator and we're gonna drag it out there. Now we have link up our player animator and we can set the value now. Okay, basically we will set this run parameter. Okay, so let's open up our player script by double clicking on it, and let's go to update function. Okay, in update function, when we holding down A or D key, in that situation we just moving left and right. So we also need to play that running animation clip. We have the reference now. Okay, so what we will do, we will check over here if math. Okay, sorry, if movement is greater than 0f. Okay, 0f, and make some curly brackets. So if movement is greater than 0f, what does basically it's mean? If we holding down A or D key, we know this input dot get axis horizontal can be 0 0 minus 1 1. So the movement over here can be 0 0 1 or minus 1. So we are checking over here. So if we holding down D key, so this movement over here will be 1, which is true. Okay, so 1, and this over here will be 1, and we know 1 is greater than 0. Okay, so the condition over here getting true. So whatever we gonna write in between these curly brackets, it will be execute. So what we wanna do, we wanna go to that animator. Basically we holding down D key, so we are moving to the right direction. Okay, basically that movement becoming 1. Okay, and we know we checking 1 if 1 is greater than 0. So in this case what we gonna do, we will go to that animator component, and when we will set that float and make sure that is float, and in quotation we have to pass the parameter name as we did in animator tab. So make sure it. Okay, let's go to Unity. As you can see run in the left side, so you have to pass the same name over in quotation. Okay, so let's pass, and the second argument comma, you have to pass the value. Okay, so in this case what we will do, we will set it to 1f, and we know we're setting this run parameter to 1f, and if we set that run parameter to 1f, as you've seen, it will play the running animation clip instead of idle. But the problem over here is if we hold down A key, this movement will be -1, and we know -1 is not greater than 0f. Okay, it's lesser than 0f. So what we have to do, we will use a function. It's called math apes. Okay, it will convert a negative value to a positive value. Even we hold down a key, this movement over here will be -1, but that function will turn -1 to +1, and we know +1 will be greater than 0f. So this condition over here getting true. So in this situation, basically we just setting that run parameter to 1. Basically we just running. If we hold down a or d key, we setting that run parameter to 1, and we know if we set it to 1, it will play the running animation clip. So what we have to do over here, we have to change a little bit. Okay, so we will put this whole movement to mathf.apps, okay, into this function. So put this whole movement into this mathf.apps. Basically this will convert a negative value to a positive. Okay, so movement, even we holding down a key, which will be -1, so this mathf.apps will convert that -1 to a +1. Okay, so this condition over here getting true. Okay, so in this situation we setting that run parameter to 1, and we know if we set to 1, it will play the running animation clip. Okay, so control S to save your code, and let's go to Unity, and we will stack in the running animation clip forever, because we also need to set back to run parameter to 0, because we set that to 1, we never setting it to 0. So we will stack in the this run animation clip. I'm gonna explain how it will gonna work. Okay, just wait and you're gonna able to see. Okay, so if I hit this play button and if I hold down A or D key, that movement will be -1 or +1, but that mathf.apps will convert -1 to a +1, and we checking if that movement is greater than 0f. We know. Okay, so as you can see, we get stuck in the running animation clip forever. So we also need to set this run parameter back to 0, and if we set this back to 0, okay, this it will go to player underscore idle animation clip. Let's set back to 0. So we need to set this run parameter back to 0 in our code. Okay, so let's do that, but when we should, when we are not moving. Okay, so let's open up our script one more time. Okay, so over here we will check else if. Okay, else if movement, okay, movement is lesser than 0f. Okay, or what you can do. Okay, let's check for this. So basically movement is lesser than 0f, basically means we are uh, instead what we will do, if movement is 0 0, let's check for 0 0. Okay, basically if the movement is 0 0, basically we are not moving, we're not holding down a key, else even okay, we're not holding down A or D key. Okay, A or D key, if we don't hold down, basically player is not moving, so the movement over here will be 0. Okay, so over here we checking else if movement is 0, basically we are not moving anywhere left or right. So in this case what we want to do, so let's copy this line of code by Control C and paste it over inside of these brackets. So we will set this run parameter to 0f, and we know if we set that run parameter to 0f, so it will play idle animation clip right away. Okay, so Control S to save your code, and let's go to Unity. Okay, we checking if the movement is equals to 0. Basically that means we not moving to the left as well as to the right, because if we don't hold down A or D key, that movement will be 0, and we checking if the movement is 0. In that situation we setting this run parameter to 0. Okay, and we know if we set this run to 0, it will play that idle animation clip. Okay, so if I hit this play button now, okay, if I hit this play button now and see the result, if we don't move, we should play this idle animation clip right away. So as you can see, when we are not moving, okay, as you can see, we just playing our idle animation clip right away. But when we hold down A or D key, okay, on our keyboard, as you can see, running animation just playing. So for next tutorial we will get into our player jump, okay, animation clip, as well as we will flip the character to the left side. When we are moving to the left side, we're not flipping in that direction, basically means left direction. So we also need to flip this character to the left direction, as well as we need to make the jump animation clip. As you can see, when we press down our space key, we not just playing our jumping animation clip. Okay, we need to make that. So we will get into that future tutorial or next tutorial you can say. I hope you get the basics idea how you can just play around with animation and make transition between them. Okay, and lastly, thanks for watching this